What's going on, GBA fans? You got Matty Brolic here, and if you're wondering why I am starting off this video, it is because I'm actually soloing it this week. Baby Nick was not available to record when I was, so because I actually will be absent next week, I've just decided to solo this one, and I'll do my best to handle it on my own without my amazing co-host. And yeah, anyway, getting right into the picks, guys. Really appreciate all the support, and thank you for coming out every week to always pick in the comments and also pick in the Twitter polls. That really is enjoyable for us as much as it is for you. So definitely encourage you to keep doing that. But yeah, thank you so much for all that support. It means a lot to us. So getting on to the actual picks. Week 6 was another tough week. It definitely threw a lot of people for a loop. People just don't seem to be getting positive weeks very often anymore. And even the ones who are getting positive are usually going around 5-3. I haven't seen many 6-2s in the recent weeks, and even me myself, I've been getting a bunch of 5-3s as of late, so at least I'm staying afloat. But it would really be nice to get a nice 7 in 1 week every now and then. But who knows? Maybe this next week, but probably not, because this next week rather looks pretty tough to call. So just going over week 6, no one did terribly this week. I think the lowest pick score was 3-5, which is not that bad. There were a couple 6-2s, including you guys. You guys did great as the fan picks, so you guys are definitely holding your own, and I would like to see you guys catch up, because that would just give us coaches more motivation to continue and try to pick as best as we can. So without further ado, we will get into week 7, as it is another very intense week. So first game, we have the San Jose Sharpedos coached by Tom going against the Borussia Dortmund coached by Lars. Now, this is a pretty tough game to call, because Tom, I just feel like he's one of those guys who's right there. You know, he's so close to turning the corner. If he was just able to, I guess, up his skill and up his preparation level just a little bit, then he could definitely be one of the tougher coaches in the league. He'll make a lot of these really good and solid plays throughout the course of a match and use some sets to, pretty good success. Ones that I wouldn't expect to normally work so well, or just using Pokemon that normally I wouldn't think are the best, but he just seems to be really comfortable using. So if he would just be able to kind of step it up a little bit, I probably would want to pick him more often. But since I have seen Lars do better and I've seen more success out of Lars overall, I am going to have to stick with Lars this week. In terms of the team matchup, it's always hard to say that Lars has a bad matchup when he has Pokemon like Landorus Eye and Crawdaunt, because those obviously have great offensive matchups against every other team, basically. Maybe they don't necessarily put in the most work against a certain team. Maybe they're pressured, but in terms of their offensive coverage and stabs, they just put so much pressure on most teams. So one thing that's kind of interesting about this match is that both Megas have a 150 base speed tier. So if they both decide to bring their Mega Evolutions, they will probably have to run max speed, because Mega Alakazam and Mega Aerodactyl will speed tie at max, and they could both pretty much knock each other out after a little bit of prior damage. Probably, Aerodactyl probably doesn't even need any prior damage to really knock out Alakazam with something like an Aerial Ace, Stone Edge, or Crunch, or anything like that. So, with that being said, that should be kind of interesting there. But overall, the matchup does look fairly even. I don't really see any glaring weaknesses on both teams, going from one to the other. Mamoswine is always really threatening, and it doesn't seem like the Donphan have too much for it, because Vaporeon really isn't a great check to something like a Life Orb Earthquake, and what else? And Mesprit, even though it has Levitate to avoid the Earthquakes, it's just not as bulky as something like Uxie, so it can't take Life Orb Icicle Crashes and knockoffs and things like that. So that Mamoswine is extremely threatening, and if Tom could play that well, he could definitely win this game. But like I said before, Landorus Eye and Crawdaunt are very big threats to Tom's team. Especially Crawdaunt really is a huge threat, because Aqua Jet, something like a +2 Aqua Jet after a Swords Dance puts in so much damage against the Sharpedos team, and the only thing that's immune to that is Jellicent, which obviously gets destroyed by any type of dark move from Crawdaunt. So should be interesting to see how Lars uses Crawdaunt this week. But as if you just want to consider how the coaches have been playing, I think I have to give this one to Lars, but definitely would not be surprised to see Tom capture the win this week. So moving on to the next game, we have the Boston Red Sox versus the San Francisco Arcaniners, and this is another pretty tough one to call, because Nick is very good. I'm starting to not like his team, as much as I did on paper earlier on in the season. I just feel like it looks really solid, but Mega Venusaur is one of those Pokemon. I know people are probably going to blast me in the comments for this, but Mega Venusaur I feel like is a Pokemon that's really overrated. It looks great, absolutely fantastic on paper because it's a great combination of bulk, power, and speed. Not that it has great speed, but 80 base speed really isn't that bad, and it'll let you outspeed a ton of defensive threats that might otherwise be able to, or even slower, just powerful threats that might otherwise be able to threaten Venusaur. So that's pretty cool, but the versatility between Venusaur's moves, bulk, and power is really what makes it seem like one of the best Draft League Pokemon, of all. But in my opinion, it really is a little bit overrated because it's that type of Pokemon that gets worn down pretty easily. Its bulk is very good, but if you design a lot on your team to be able to pressure it, then more times than not, it's hard to keep Venusaur as healthy as you'd like it to be able to just 1v1 a lot of your opponent's team, as you could maybe in more of like a Smogon singles type format, because when your whole team isn't really designed to take on Mega Venusaur, a lot of Pokemon just tend to lose one-on-one to Mega Venusaur. So as long as you can kind of support it well and play around it, then makes Venusaur really easily 1v1s a lot of Pokemon. But in this type of format, if you really can key on a Mega Venusaur and pressure it throughout the entire game, it is tough to keep it healthy. It is tough for it to just bust holes in opposing teams because even though it is pretty powerful, its move pool is like it does have good moves in general. All of its moves are very useful, but its offensive coverage leaves a little bit to be desired, and it's not crazy powerful. Base 123, I believe, special attack is good, but it's nothing. It's nothing so crazy considering the fact that it doesn't have any type of boosting item, and its stabs aren't crazy strong. So, and it also needs to rely on HP Fire pretty much to hit steals. It could run Earthquake too, but it depends on what steel type it is for it to really be able to do some damage. So, I just kind of wanted to get that out there. I don't think Mega Venusaur is as good as a lot of people give it, the credit of being, and I think because of that, it is hurting Nick's team a little bit because he does have a pretty solid looking team all around, but I just think it looks a little bit better on paper than it actually is in execution. And because of that, I do think that George is going to come out with the win this week because I think that George is definitely one of the best coaches in the league, or just one of the best Draft League format players of all. And his team is just really exciting. He's got a lot of interesting threats on his team, really fast and offensive, which I like personally, because I feel like, I don't even want to get into that. I was just going to say that I feel like offense gives you so many more doors to find potential win paths as opposed to defensive strategies in this type of format. That's just my personal opinion, but I am completely biased because I just love to play offense. But yeah, George has really been playing awesome lately. His Nidoqueen, what a performance that thing put on last week with 4 kills against the Donphan. That was amazing. George has been on a pretty good roll ever since he lost to Envy, so I am just going to give him the edge this week. But I do think that Nick can definitely win because he's just a very solid coach with a solid team. So, and the fact that George's team is frail also kind of requires him to play pretty aggressively, which, I'm not opposed to it playing aggressively, but if you have to kind of come out and do that every week, which I'm not saying he does, but if you do have to do that every week, or if you just want to come out and do that every week and people catch wind of it, then you could definitely be in trouble and kind of get stopped in your tracks. So, moving on to the next game, we have the New York Metapods going against the Tampa Bay Lux Rays. Now, this one was a little bit tough for me to call at first because Dan got a big win last week against the New Orleans Pelipers. That was definitely a big win and a step up for Dan because he has definitely been struggling. But we all know Dan is the master of surprise. He can come out of nowhere and really catch people off guard and just really read his opponents pretty well. He has the moxie and the guts to make a lot of the plays that a lot of people won't make. So that tends to catch his opponents off guard and put him in a good position every now and then. And when he does that, he's definitely tough to stop. And then looking at the team matchup here, it just seems like where are those? Okay, there they are. They're right next to each other pretty much. Okay, when I was looking at the team matchup, I was just thinking, what do the Lux Rays have for something like a Victini? Victini really just runs through the Lux Rays team, offensively at least. And then things like Mega Altaria are extremely threatening as long as the Bronzong is weakened and taken out. Then Mega Altaria just really goes all over the the Lux Rays. But the Lux Rays have a lot of good Pokemon, and Monotui has really shown that he's grown to be pretty comfortable with this team. I mean, maybe he's not, but he certainly makes it look that way. He definitely knows how to use his team quite well, and with Pokemon like Mega Manectric that get almost free Volt switches on the Metapods. The reason I say almost free is because Flygon can potentially stop Volt switches, but it's not a Pokemon that you normally want to switch into Mega Manectric. That could definitely be a big issue for the Metapods because they do have some really, really threatening wall breakers like Azumarill, Porygon Z, Emboar, what was I missing? Garchomp could be a threat as well. So, with that being said, the Lux Rays definitely have just a pretty solid matchup as well. I don't think that either of these teams really have a huge advantage over each other at face value, but I definitely think that both teams have the really big threats to one another, and it's just going to come down to who preps well and who plays better. And right now, it's been no contest, in my opinion, between Monotui versus Dan in terms of who's been prepping better and playing better. So Monotui has continued to impress me ever since he debuted in the league, and that is why I'm picking him as my lock of the week for Week 7. So moving on to game number 4. This should be a very interesting game, guys. You have John, who really was trying to come back strong in these past couple weeks, but got stopped after a tough loss against Dan last week, versus MV, basically the guy to beat right now. I believe both him and George are 5-1, but he's still, I guess, he seemed pretty dominant so far in the league. A lot of his differential wins are very high. He's most definitely leading the league in differential right now. So MV's pretty much the guy to beat, if you ask me. But it's still not that easy to call, just because John is a really seasoned veteran in this type of format, and he has a pretty scary team to MV's relatively offensive team. Things like Landorus T, Bisharp, Megalopunny are all very big threats, and Megalopunny especially is threatening this week because it's not one of those powerful physical attackers that could just get walled and trapped by Wobbuffet. Megalopunny has access to Baton Pass, which can really prevent something like Wobbuffet from just trapping Lopunny and getting rid of it. So Lopunny is an absolutely massive threat to the Chimchargers this week, but this is MV we're talking about. His team is really scary. He has threats. For example, Jirachi looks amazing against the Pelipper's because Jirachi's coverage and offensive and defensive typing are both really useful in this match. And just things like Keldeo, Gyarados are all generally pretty nice. If he can Pursuit Trap the Latios or something like that, then Sneasel, with Sneasel, then Keldeo really goes off against the Pelipper's. So I think that with the way MV's been playing, he is the guy to beat right now, and knowing John, he definitely will be the type of guy to rise to the occasion and try to beat him. But like I said, with the way MV's been playing right now, it's just really hard to go against him, and I'm just going to have to stick with MV because I know what he's capable of. He's a good friend of mine, and I don't see him losing this week, especially because he's really been upping his, been trying to up his preparation ever since he took the loss to Lars a couple weeks ago. So, or actually Blunder took that loss, but MV didn't want to get another loss just because he wants to finish first in the league, obviously. So he is definitely upping his preparation. So moving on to the next match, we have the Milwaukee Sawbucks versus the Atlanta Harluchas and Fizz. I take back my apology from last week. Last week I gave a full-out apology to Fizz because I kept picking, not kept, but a lot of the season I picked against him because he was going against players that I thought were really solid or had good matchups. And the first game of the season, I picked him. I definitely thought he was going to win, and he ended up losing the first game. So after that, every time I picked against him, then he ended up winning and surprising me every time. And then, I gave him a full-out apology and said, you know what, Fizz? I'm sorry. I can never pick against you again. And what does he do last week? He loses. So, Fizz, I take that apology back, but I do want to give you another shot at redeeming yourself. I do think Fizz is going to win against Battler X this week just because Battler X really hasn't, shown to be one of the top threats this season. He's definitely showed some good signs of skill and preparation, but if you want to look at the Sawbucks team and consider what his switches to a Volcanion would be, you have Slowbro, and A Slowbro, if it's physically defensive, gets nearly 2 KO'd by Spec Steam Eruption. And obviously, Volcanion could run something like Hidden Power Grass to hit it a little bit harder. Burning Slowbro also makes it not a switch into Volcanion anymore. So Volcanion really goes off against the Sawbucks team. And one of the Sawbucks' biggest threats, like absolute biggest threats, is the Mega Pinsir. And Mega Pinsir actually gets shut down by Rhyperior pretty well, because I know it gets close combat in Earthquake, but with a defensive set and Solid Rock, Rhyperior can take, quite a bit of damage from Mega Pinsir and easily knock it out with any type of rock move. So I think he's looking pretty good in this match. He also has a Porygon 2, which is a very nice check to Gengar, which is another huge threat, but you never know. You really don't know what's going to happen in the GBA. It really has just become so competitive that you don't know what's going to happen just because one team may have a good matchup and one coach may be playing better than another at a certain point in time. So you don't know necessarily, but I'm going to go with Fizz in this match over Steve, or Battler X. Sorry about that. So next we have the Utah Jasmine versus the Newcastle United. Now, this was tough for me to call because Cooper got a really big win last week over Fizz. He won a nice 3-0 victory. So that was definitely big for him. And he just comes out of nowhere and catches people off guard all the time. So it's kind of hard to pick against Cooper because he could just come out and be on fire and just do something you wouldn't expect him to do and pick up a big win. But then he could also come out and just kind of drop the ball or just bring something that seems cool on paper but doesn't actually work in practice. So I would say he's definitely the most hit-or-miss coach in the league. And because of that, I am just going to go with the Newcastle United. They finally got their first win last week, and I really do think that Sam is a good coach and that his team is good. So maybe he could build off of that momentum from last week. I feel like this is going to be the pick that I'm going to end up regretting just because I picked him like 3 or 4 times in a row the first few weeks, and he lost every single one of those games. But yeah, I don't know. I do think he's genuinely good, and if he can just build off of that momentum he got from last week, maybe he could pull out a win. That would be great. But I could be entirely wrong. Who knows? So I guess I'll look at the matchup really quickly. I didn't look at that one. Newcastle versus who is he playing again? Who is he playing? Let me go back. Oh, the Jasmine, right? The Jasmine. So, if I take a look at that, who do I think is going to win? Because it actually looks like the Jasmine have a lot of good answers to some of Newcastle's biggest threats, but one thing that does kind of stand out to me is that a Combine Suicune just destroys the Jasmine team, but the reason I don't know if he's going to exploit that weakness is because for whatever reason, I'm pretty sure he doesn't like to use Crokun. Maybe it's like for a personal reason. He maybe thinks it's just an obnoxious set, and he didn't use that against Tup's team, where it literally had like this golden matchup. Like all he had to do was not play it badly, and as long as Tup didn't have crazy amount of prep for that specific threat, then he basically would have been able to sweep with Crokun. But he didn't bring it. I don't even think he brought Suicune to that game. So I don't know who's going to win this one. I'm tempted to go back and pick the Jasmine right now, but I'm going to stick with my guns and go with the Newcastle United here. And we'll move on from there. So now, going on to the 7th game of the week, we have the Real Marill versus the Pittsburgh Patatas. And Miguel's been looking pretty strong as of recent. He may not have the greatest record right now, but it seems like he's kind of, whether he wants to quit or not after this season, it seems like he's just finishing it out here. He's not just throwing in the towel. He's continuing to prep more and more on his own every single week and just go out there and play his best, do his best to win, because I know he's a proud guy. I know he's aware of how good he is as a player. And with that type of information and that type of personality and mentality that he naturally has, just from seeing his videos, I know that it would just eat him up inside to just kind of come out every week and flop over to an opponent that he thinks he should be able to beat. I know that's how it would act with me, but just from seeing his videos, I'm pretty sure that's how it would affect him as well. So I see Miguel coming out strong and continuing to play hard and prep hard. And if he does that, I do think that he will be able to get the win over the Patatas. But if you want to look at the matchup a little bit, some of the reasons I think the Real Madrid have a nice matchup is because what is Tup switching into Weavile? I mean, his only dark resist is Leopard, which like easily gets 2 KO'd by knockoff, and Heracross, which gets hit really hard by Icicle Crash. It's not a Mega Heracross or anything like that, so Heracross takes tons of damage from Icicle Crash. And then also, what else was I thinking was really a huge threat? Oh yeah, also what is nice against Tup here is Mega Blastoise. Mega Blastoise just kind of comes in and clicks buttons and watches things drop, as long as Miguel plays it smart and gets it in safely and things like that. Because Blastoise is bulky, so it could take a hit or two. But if he can keep it healthy and just keep getting it in safely and force Tup to try to pivot around it, then Mega Blastoise has a field day. Another pretty nice thing is that the Patatas are not weak to Talonflame per se, but because they do have pretty decent checks in things like Hippowdon and Rotom Heat. Those are two very solid checks. But one thing that Miguel is able to do is trap Hippowdon or Rotom Heat with Gothitelle and then allow his Talonflame to just really run through the Patatas team. So with that being said, I do think Miguel has a pretty good matchup if he plays smart this week, and he is a smart man, so I do think he will play well and probably pick up the win this week over Tup. But as I've been saying all season, Tup really has been stepping it up, so I just don't know. I feel bad that I keep picking against him too, but he has a tough schedule, so he's always going against players that I think are just as good as he is. So it's definitely tough to pick him for me sometimes. But moving on to the final game, we have the San Francisco Giants versus the Philadelphia Sciors. Now, I had to go with my boy Chimpact. Gio has not been playing very well in these past few weeks. Now, that may cause him to be even more motivated to come back and come back even stronger than ever. But the thing is, he, last season he got better throughout the season. I definitely saw improvements from the prior season to that, but he still wasn't. I wouldn't have considered him one of the best coaches in the league last year. This year he started out seeming like he was one of the best in the league. Like he really has a great team, and it seemed like he really knew how to use it and he was comfortable with it, and his confidence just seemed like it was rising. But ever since he got his first loss by kind of making a little misplay, he's definitely been off since then. I know he played one time from vacation, which definitely hurt, but I think that was a winnable match as well, and he just wasn't playing his best. So if he's not playing his best, I don't think he's going to be able to beat an opponent like Chimpact. Chimpact made a pretty good move recently by getting rid of Frogadier to get Tauros, so I think his team has improved a little bit from that alone, and that actually is a pretty big threat to the Giants team. I mean, kind of, actually not even that much, but its speed tier is nice, and it's just a powerful Pokemon with the ability Sheer Force and whatnot. So in terms of the matchup, though, as I'm looking at it, it seems like Gio may have a slight matchup advantage here, but Rain is definitely a big threat to Gio, as Kingdra really doesn't have any good switch-ins on Gio's team outside of Ditto's not a switch-in, but at least Ditto could come in with a Scarf and revenge the Kingdra and just force it out and whatnot, which is pretty cool. So I don't think Chimpact has a particularly great matchup this week, but if Gio's not playing, very well, then I don't think he's going to beat Chimpact, and that's why I had to pick Chimpact here. But a lot of people seem to be going with Gio in this situation. It's definitely going to be a close game in my opinion, or just a close one to call. But yeah, knowing what Chimpact's capable of, and knowing the fact that Gio has not been himself recently, definitely kind of influences me to pick Chimpact the most. So that wraps it up for Week 7, guys. I hope you enjoyed this Pick'em Crew video. I know Baby Nick wasn't here, and it's definitely more fun when we're here doing this as a team, but I did my best to just hold my own. And I hope you guys enjoyed the video as well, because I just enjoyed making it. I always enjoy making it. And with that being said, I will be going on vacation next week, so I will not be around. Baby Nick will be doing that one by himself, so I'll miss you guys for a week. But definitely continue to pick in the comments. picking the polls and all that stuff, because like I said before, we really appreciate that. We love to see you guys come out and participate and pick and all of that stuff. It really means a lot to us, and it makes what we do a lot more fun. So I hope you guys continue to do that. And with that being said, I will call it the end of this video. So thank you guys for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed. Likes, comments are always appreciated. And I will see you guys in 2 weeks. And definitely stay tuned for next week. Later.